Do I look like an alien? Because that is what today's episode is about. What's up, beautiful people? Welcome back, and thank you for joining me for a brand new episode of Unsolved Mysteries and Makeup. I don't know where I got the idea from to do this, but this is like so uncomfortable. I had to pull this down. This is so terrible. And just a quick disclaimer, excuse the voice. It is a little tiny bit hoarse because I am obsessed with Hamilton. You know, ever since it hit Disney Plus, I have been like fucking on it 24/7. I feel like I have been understudying for every female road, and even Burr, even his that goddamn wait for it is everything. But you guys, you guys know why you're here. You guys know what's about to happen next. I'm actually gonna take this uncomfortable gel face mask off and tie my hair up, and then we'll get into today's episode, okay? I'm really excited about today's episode, guys, for two reasons. Number one, I am jacked up on iced coffee. Absolutely, first thing in the morning. If you guys don't know, I've been on a keto diet for maybe like 3 weeks so far. And prior to this week, I've been drinking only tea and water. And when I drink my tea, there is just tea and water in it. Like there's no sweeteners or anything else like that. So stevia has entered my life, and I've been drinking iced coffee, and I don't know, it's been giving me like good vibes and jolts of energy, and I'm just way more happier now that it's not just tea and water. But the second reason why I'm really excited is because today's episode is about aliens. And before you ask, like, I do believe in aliens. I do 100%. And the reason why I do is because I just feel like there's so many universes and so many galaxies out there. Why would we be the only living beings? Why? I mean, there's so much documentation out there, so many videos, so many stories. And at one point in time, if somebody was to say, oh, aliens, everybody'd be like, well, you're crazy. No, not anymore, guys. Not anymore whatsoever. If somebody tells me that, you know, they've seen it for themselves, I'm going to hear what they have to say. And that's basically what this episode is about. Normally with Unsolved Mysteries, there's some type of like tragic abduction, should I say, where, you know, somebody's being brutally hurt or murdered or something like that. A lot of these unsolved mystery stories have been solved where the person that it was about was found. But this one is slightly different. And the thing I love about it is that the story is being told by multiple people that live pretty much in one large area. So they all may not be in the same specific town, but they all are like in the same place, if that makes any sense to you guys. I understand it. I don't know if you guys understand it. Oh, and look, I did my nails again. Ew. I did them white. If I told you guys what they call this type of white, you would be like floored. Because when I heard it, I was so like, wait, who came up with that name? Who named it that? You guys all agree that this is what we're going to call it? It's just so weird. So I did white again. Kind of kept it a little bit basic. Put a little bit of white glitter in here, you know, for the culture. So let's get into this makeup and let's get into this story. So last week I did say how I forgot a couple of steps, and I am actually still getting used to this whole doing makeup on camera and telling a story. So let's just pray for the best, and hopefully I can do this right. I'm kind of nervous about this look today because it's a little bit more on the edgier side, but I purposely picked this look for this episode. So it's all edgy. But
moisturizer.
This episode is called Berkshire UFO. And the reason why it's called Berkshire UFO is because On September 1st, 1969, near the Berkshire Mountains. Now, this is like out in Massachusetts. Multiple people reported coming into contact with unidentified flying objects with UFOs. And the thing I think is very interesting about this story is that a lot of people came in contact with them. But as far as specific abductions, it sounded like it was all children, all younger children. So I was just like, huh. So adults reported what they seen and what they witnessed, but it was actually the children that, you know, were being taken up into this craft. And you guys don't have to believe it. I believe it 100% what they're saying. So just understand that, like, I am all here for it, like all here for it. But let's get some primer going. I love my spray primer so much, y'all. And it actually smells good. It actually smells very refreshing. All this happened at the corner of the Berkshire Mountains. And the first person that actually started telling her story on this episode was named Jane, right? So Jane was coming back from a town called Stockbridge, and she was actually going to Great Barrington. Now, Great Barrington is a town in Massachusetts, and I want to say that Great Barrington is like the center of, you know, all this stuff that's going on. It was actually spread out over a region, like I want to say surrounding Great Barrington. So Great Barrington is like the main place where this stuff was going down. Jane was coming back with a friend, and they were driving at night. And that's one of the things that all the stories have in common. Whether it started during the daytime, everything was actually going down at night. And this is why people are afraid of traveling in the dark. Because when things go bump in the night, it's time to get the hell out of there. They were traveling at night, and they actually seen really, really bright lights. Jane figured that it was probably a car accident that happened. She said something about thinking that, well, maybe it was the cops because the lights were just so bright. I don't know how it was in 1969, but if I don't see like red and blue lights, I'm not thinking it's the cops at all. I think that what happens with a lot of people is that they probably have a thought that they understand what's going on, or like, but like they probably tell themselves the opposite. Basically, they're trying to justify what they're experiencing, trying to make it something tangible, because, you know, aliens aren't supposed to exist. And it's just like, where the hell did these lights come from? Where did these lights, like, who turned these lights on, you know? So they ran into lights, and she thought it was probably an accident. And for some odd reason, Jane kept driving. Like, if I see bright lights, I'm not going to keep driving. I'm stopping. I'm like, wait a second now. What's going on up here? So she kept driving, and they went as far as they could until they really couldn't go no more. And then Jane pulled over to the side of the road. Might have been a little bit of curiosity in there if she kept going to the point where like she just couldn't go anymore. I wouldn't be that fucking curious at all. Not the fuck at all. I'd be like, oh, something don't feel right. I got to go. But Jane and her homegirl kept going. And I'm like, for me, I'm just wondering, like, what did her friend say? Because if it was me and my friend was driving, I would be like,
so you gonna keep driving? We gonna keep, something don't feel right, we just gonna keep driving. Oh, okay, girl, you in the driver's seat, that's on you.
Because Jane fucking around getting both killed, for real, for real. But they kept going until they couldn't go anymore. And then Jane pulled over and they both got out of the car. And at this point in time, it's just like, what the entire fuck is this? What's going on? What is all of this? They said that it was really, really large, but they couldn't like really see like a good amount of details. So they couldn't see what type of metal it was. Jane said we didn't know if it was silver, bronze, or gold. And I'm pretty sure that had something to do with the lights. I'm pretty sure it did. But yeah, they really couldn't like see like crazy details. But what they did notice is that it was absolutely silent. This thing, wherever it was hovering off the ground. You couldn't really see where it started, but it was silent, not making no noise whatsoever. We're used to seeing crafts in the sky, and like even if it's a helicopter hovering, it's like do 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 do, like you'll hear the propellers spinning. They didn't get any of that, and I'd be like,
it's time to get back in the car. I don't know what this is or why it's here or why it's absolutely silent, but it's time for me to get back in the car, Jane. Let's go.
It didn't have no windows either. And they just sat there looking at it. Now, I don't know how long the craft was there for. I don't know how long they stood there for, but I do know is that, you know, they seen it. They were shocked, probably a little bit on the scared side, and they were up close to this thing. Like, they were not too far from it, and I don't know, they might have been stuck in place, honestly, because, you know, sometimes when fear sets in, you just freeze. So poor Jane and her homegirl, but they were there, and that's what happened to them. I'm not exactly sure why, but in this area there are people with the same name, and yeah, it's very, very interesting. Luckily, I have pictures, so I'll be able to explain to you who is who, and you'll actually be able to see, you know, that these are not the same people. They just so happen to have the same name. So the next story is basically about a kid named Tom Warner. Now, there is going to be another Tom, but this one is Tom Warner. And he was actually at the neighbor's house. I just want to make sure this is all blended in. He was at the neighbor's house, and that's something that he did often. One of the girls next door was named Jane, and he was real cool with Jane. But then he's also even cooler with Jane's sister, Debbie. Debbie is 4 years older than Jane, and he would love to go next door, and he would color with Debbie. And it's so funny because you hear how like Debbie would yell at him,
Stay in the lines, Tom. Don't color outside the lines, Tom.
but I don't know. I guess he liked to be bossed around because he loved it. He loved going over there, and from the feeling I get, it probably felt like it was a second home for him. I mean, everybody loves somebody that can boss them around. No, they don't. I don't think I would be able to take it. But Tom was really young, so I don't know. I don't know if Tom had he did have older siblings now that I think about it. I think he was the youngest out of like 7 or 8 or 9 siblings. I can't remember. I'll definitely go back and find out though. But yeah, he was the youngest out of all of his siblings. And he would go next door. So Tom said that he was over there all day, and it actually started to get late. And I don't know, he was in the kitchen and he went to the window and he heard a voice tell him, "It's time to go home." He was terrified because the voice came from out of nowhere. The voice just like, it was almost as if it was in his mind. And he was like, what the entire fuck? But he listened. So he ran back to Jane and Debbie and told them, hey, I gotta go home. It's time for me to go. And he was in a panic. He was in a rush. So he bolted out the back door. And that's the word that he used. He used bolted. He bolted out the back door instead of heading home. mind you, he lived in the property directly next door. So he said that he just was running for dear life, just running out of there, right? Here's the craziest part about it. He said that he was being fueled by adrenaline and fear, and I can completely understand it. But then he also said that he kind of felt like his body was levitating. Jane and Debbie are at the back door like, because they seen him like they seen him like dash out the back door, and then his body just stops and he's running in place as fast as he can. He's terrified. They're terrified. Nobody knows what's going on. All they know is that, you know, this kid that they're cool with was like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. I gotta go. And then, you know, all these different things start happening at the drop of a dime. It was just really, really crazy. So Jane actually said that Tom was running in place for every bit of 5 minutes. That probably was like, I don't know. I don't even know like how to describe how to feel about that. For 5 minutes, they see him run in place with all his might. And then, you know, next thing you know, Tom, he realizes that he's running in place. And he said that he looked to the left of him and there's a rock. But then when he looked more, there's this craft there. I would have shit on myself by this point in time. Between the voice, the dashing out the door, running in place, feeling like you're levitating, and then seeing the actual craft there, I don't know. I would have shit on myself. When he seen the craft, he said that it dropped out of the sky. And then he felt a light of beam on him. And after that, he disappeared. Gone. So it's kind of interesting how this episode is set up because the stories kind of collide with each other just a little bit. And I'm actually going to jump on to the next person. Well, not jump on, but jump to the next person, who is Melanie. So Melanie was out with her family, and they are actually out getting ice cream. So I think she might have even said Dairy Queen. So they're out getting ice cream, and then they leave. And when they're on their way home, they're in a car, and her father is driving, and there are bright lights that appear in front of them. Now, her dad is like, what the hell is that? And her mom is just like, oh, it's just a shooting star. Yes, honey, it's a shooting star levitating in front of us. Don't even worry about it. It's not a million miles away. Shooting stars, they either disintegrate in the atmosphere or, I don't know, they crash into something. But that's what it is, 100%. It's a shooting star. Melanie is terrified, but her dad gets excited. Her dad is like, oh, hell no. We have to chase this. She's like, why? Dad, chill the fuck out. You're drawn right now. Like, come on. So Melanie is in the back seat with her sister, and they're terrified. Her dad chases this thing down, and next thing you know, I think the car was levitating. Now, Melanie says she remembers the car levitating, but her sister that she was sitting in the back seat with, she can't remember anything whatsoever. When the car starts levitating, all Melanie knows is that in an instance, she's just, I guess you could say, teleported to somewhere else. She ends up on this craft, and I don't know, she just was like, what the hell? Now, she remembers seeing a whole bunch of other kids on the craft. Tom, remember Tom from the first story? Like I didn't tell it 3 minutes ago? Tom was on the craft too. And he remembers seeing Melanie, but Melanie never seen Tom. And that's because there were a lot of kids, and she said one by one, they would just disappear. Like they would be there and they would be gone. I don't know if it was a rapid disappearance, but they were just vanishing. I don't know how many kids was on this craft either. She just said that she had seen a whole bunch of them. I think in a time like that, like you'll probably be panicking, trying to figure out like what's going on, and you're not going to sit there and be like, oh, let me count how many kids it is up here. You're just not going to do it. So Tom seen her, she didn't see him, and kids are disappearing on this craft. How scary is that? Not too scary, right? At some point in time, Melanie probably disappeared too, just like the rest of the kids one by one. The only difference is that once they disappeared, they have no recollection of how long they were gone for and what happened. The next thing Melanie knows is that she wakes up and she's by the lake by herself. I don't know how far the lake is from where she initially was, but she was there by herself and she ended up having to walk home in the dark by herself. Tom, on the other hand, Tom ends up back at the property, like at the house he was taken from, but he's all the way on the edge of the property. So I'm probably guessing that he's between his property and Debbie's property, the next door neighbor's property. So he just appears out of thin air and his brother sees him. He's lying down in the grass and his brother's like, yo, you have to get up and run. Mind you, there's a beam of light on Tom. So he's trying to move off the ground. This is always crooked. He's trying to move off the ground, but he can't. And his brother's like, yo, you have to run. He's like, I can't move. I cannot move for the life of me. I can't move. I don't know what to do. Like, I can't move. Then he hears another voice. And this voice says, I'm almost done. What? You're almost done what, sis? What are we doing right now? What's happening to me? I can't move. My brother is like terrified for me and I don't know what's going on. Eventually, the beam of light goes away and Tom hauls ass. He gets the fuck out of there. And honestly, I don't blame him at all. I probably wouldn't even have left the house for a while. I probably would have just stayed up in there and, just don't talk to me. Let's homeschool this for the rest of my life or the rest of my school career, my schooling, and just let me rock out like this. I'm not going nowhere. No, I can't do it at all. I'm terrified, like 100% terrified. And poor Tom. I'm surprised Tom didn't shit or piss this up because I would have ASAP. But Jane and her sister, remember how Jane and her sister were watching, Jane and Debbie? So apparently, Jane says that from the time Tom vanished into thin air to the time that he ended up at the end of the property, it was 7 minutes. Where she had to stop watch from, I don't know. Maybe she had a watch on her wrist. I'm not sure. But she did say that it was only 7 minutes. So before we jump into the next story, 2 things. Number 1, I'm still not a makeup artist, so I'm still winging this. And number 2, Melanie and Tom did not know each other prior to both being abducted. They ran with different crowds. They were from the Great Barrington area, but they weren't from like the same little towns. But what they did say is that when they met, it was an automatic connection, and there was like a meeting of the minds. Like, they knew. 100% they knew. And they had, like, pretty much kept contact ever since then. So this story also has a Tom in it. Tom is accompanied by his mother, Tom is accompanied by his grandmother, and Tom is also accompanied by his little brother, Matt. So the family goes out earlier on in the day, and there was basically a horse show that Tom was in, and that's why the whole family was out. Something happened at the horse show. Tom kinda lost control of the horse he had. His mother, Nancy, had to step in and save the day, like mothers do. Later on, you know, they decided, well, not they, but Nancy decided, well, let's go to the diner, right? Let's go to the diner, the four of us, and you know, this is going to be a grade A family outing. Now, mind you, they were at the horse show earlier on in the day, so now it's later on in the evening. All these abductions and all these cases happen at nighttime. From what I'm gathering, it was around the 9 o'clock area for everybody. So they were like yoking people up in different places all at the same time. They go to the diner. Well, they're on their way to the diner, and they get to this bridge. The bridge goes over a river. I don't think the river is that big, but they get to this bridge, and Tom had fireballs, the little candies, and he goes to give them to Matt. And his mom turns around in the seat. Mind you, his mom is driving and his grandmom is in the passenger seat. So his mom turns around. She's like, don't give that to him. You're going to choke your little brother. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what he was trying to do anyway, because my little sister, who is 31, I'd be wanting to choke her the fuck out all the time. No cap. Anyway, so mom turns around. Nancy turns around and she's like, don't give that to your little brother. You'll choke him. And then next thing you know, shit gets real for the whole family. When she turns back around, they notice this bright light coming from the banks of the river. And it's just like, what the entire fuck is that? What the hell is going on? Now, as everybody is looking forward, the little brother Matt is actually looking out the window, and he sees like this orange ball of light, and Tom realizes that his brother is looking at something else. So he starts looking in the direction that his brother is looking at, and he said that it kind of looks like the ball is like turning, like it's moving. It's not just flying straight towards them. Like it's like a sphere that's like rolling in the air, flying towards them. Next thing you know, the ball of light, you know, it just rises higher and higher. And as it rises, there are beams of light that kind of come from out of it. So out of this orange ball, there are beams that are starting to fly from out of this orange ball. Mind you, Nancy never stops driving. Eventually, Nancy pulls off to the side, and once again, oh, I can't believe I did that. This is terrible. Once again, they notice a flying saucer. It's the same thing. Everybody's saying the same thing. There's a craft, it's up in the air, and it's not making no noise whatsoever. And then from there, they noticed that even though the craft was silent, it's like the wildlife around them just got like immensely loud. Like the crickets are going off, everything. Everybody hears the same thing. They can all talk about how, you know, I don't know, like everything around them, like all the wildlife got loud. As if the insects and the animals knew that something was happening. Like they knew that like this shit ain't natural. This is out of its world, out of this world, should I say. And after that, nobody remembers anything. Everybody's mind goes blank. They knew that something happened because they all did reappear back in the car. But the difference is that, remember how I said Nancy was driving? Her mother was in the driver's seat this time. That's how they knew that they weren't crazy, because grandma was in the driver's seat, and when they were going across the bridge and pulling over and going to the diner, Nancy was driving. So they're like, holy fucking shit. What is going on here? I don't know. Now, because they can't remember anything, they can't recall anything, they don't know how long they were gone. They don't know what happened to them or anything. The kids that were abducted on the ship, they remember, but for a lot of other people, they don't recall anything, like, at all. Is that not terrifying? That is so scary, not to remember nothing. I would be like, what? Where's my memory? Did I drop it somewhere?
Did I drop my memory? Did I drop my memory on the way over here? I had to. I must have.
But they knew they wasn't tripping though. They knew it. I'm almost positive that this is like the worst smoky eye in the history of smoky eyes. Gotta be. I'm like convinced that this is what this is. Moving forward, the local radio station actually started to get like a whole bunch of calls from the surrounding area, and people are like, yo, you know, like, shit is going on, it's wild out here, you know, you guys got to do a story on it. They were flooded with so many calls that eventually what ended up happening was the radio station actually called the cops. Now, although a lot of small towns have archives, what ended up happening was nobody back then actually thought to save tapes like how we can go and listen to recordings, not at a local radio station. So what they would do is they would do a show and they would record the show, but then they would like tape over it the next day with a new show. And I'm not really sure what the point of that was. If it's live, you know, then what's the point of taping it? But that's what they did. They taped it, and then the very next night, they tape over it again. Not really sure why, but that's what they did. Either way, there's a guy in Great Barrington named Gary Lavelle, and he's actually the Berkshire historian. So when he started to hear these stories, he actually tried to do some digging of his own. And he's like, there's no way in hell all these people are telling the same story, and, you know, there's no mention of it. There's nothing. Like, how would that even be possible? There has to be something about, you know, what these people experience. So he goes digging in the archives, and what does he find? Absolutely nothing at all. He's looking through the newspapers. He's, you know, checking all the records he can find, and he comes up with absolutely nothing. And he's like, how the hell is this even possible? And, you know, they even go to the police because they're like, well, if all these people are reporting it and the radio station calls the police, there has to be some record. September 1st, as a matter of fact, Gary looks at September 2nd first, but when they head to the police station and they go back to September 1st, nothing at all. There was like two things that happened. Something with a guy, and then there was like beer cans on somebody else's property. But, you know, this was Labor Day weekend or something like that. So it really wasn't anything out of the ordinary. And what is being said is that even though it was being reported to the sheriff, none of this stuff was written down because when the sheriff was like going out and investigating these things, there was no real evidence. So the evidence is, completely like non-existent. And everybody's like, no, you got to believe me. This really happened. And he's like, well, nobody can prove that this happened. So you guys sound like loonies. Everybody sounds crazy. And it was really, really weird because it kind of started to create this divide amongst people that was like, no, this really happened. And then people that are like, well, no, you sound crazy. You all sound crazy. And that's the one thing that would have stuck out to me. If you have, 30 something people or 40 or 50 people that's all saying the same thing, how could you believe that they were all crazy, especially if they're in different areas? But that's what was happening, and people weren't coming forward because they felt like nobody would believe them. Nobody would understand, and, nobody would listen to them. Even the sheriff said, what did he call them? He didn't call them kooks, but he's no longer alive. But his son was like, yeah, my dad didn't write any of this down because he felt like it was a whole bunch of hooey. A whole bunch of, he old head, hooey. It's a whole bunch of hooey. He, on the other hand, said that he believed everybody. So that's good, right? It smells so refreshing. Anyway, so remember how I said this kind of created a divide between people that believed it and people that didn't believe it and witnesses and everything. What eventually happened was, I won't say that the witnesses lived in fear in the way they kind of did. People that actually seen something or went through something, they pretty much only confided in each other. And, it's well, these things were only really talked about around, camp stories to people that you can trust and things like that. For the people that didn't experience it, they didn't talk to these people about it for fear of scaring the living shit out of them. And the thing that I don't really understand is that, these people that didn't go through this experience, they kind of became bullies in a way. Nancy actually packed up her family because they owned a business. And there was a guy that came in being all rowdy and just rude and nasty, and he jumps up on one of the tables, and he exposed himself and was just like, you want to see something out of this world, and then pulls out his Johnson, and I'm just like, what? And he didn't get arrested. And the thing about it is because people probably thought that Nancy and her family was crazy, so they didn't come to their defense. So it definitely created a divide amongst people in the town, and a lot of people were not believed. Some people did believe them, but people just stopped speaking up. They just, stopped talking about it. It almost became folklore. Legend has it that this is what happened in this town. So I don't even know how this got crooked again. How did this get crooked again? I'm pretty sure I straightened it out. Maybe it was aliens. Was it aliens? It was aliens. Did the aliens move my necklace? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just fucking around. I'm gonna go ahead, get these lashes on, and then we'll talk some more about this. Yeah. That's what we'll do. I'm not going to front it. I thought that with this look, I would just be like, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. This look gave me a run for my money. This has to be the worst smoky eye in the history of smoky eyes. I'm almost positive of it. And then I wanted to be edgy, so what did I do? I put liner on the bottom of my eye, and that's something that I haven't done since like high school. So now I'm feeling very Jack Sparrow-ish. One thing I will say about this whole story, these stories, is that I believe them. 100% I believe them. Before my grandmother passed away, I was telling my grandmother that, you know, people thought that I was crazy. When I was younger, I seen like people, and I heard conversations, and I seen children too. And my mom thought that something was wrong with me, and she took me to a shrink. And the shrink is all like, oh no, she's having bad dreams. These are all dreams that she's talking about. But it's not a dream when you walk into a space and you get the feeling like, I'm not here alone. That's not a dream at all. I still get that feeling when I go certain places. My grandmother, she just like explained to me that people don't believe what they've never experienced for themselves. And I wholeheartedly believe that. And when she said it, it pretty much resonated with me. And this is after me telling her, well, you know, Grandma, this is what I experienced as a child. She never said, oh, you know, that's hooey. She never said, I don't believe you. It's always hard to put this on when you're talking. Yeah, she never said any of that stuff. The only thing she said was people don't believe what they never experienced for themselves. And it's true. So I believe these people. I don't know if you guys believe them, but I just don't doubt anything. It's a reason why I'm agnostic, you know. I tend to think of myself as being a little bit more understanding to other people and what they've been through and what they experience, even if I've never seen it for myself, even if I've never seen it with my own eyes, you know, if I never experienced it, that's fine. It doesn't mean that it's not real. It just means that I didn't experience it. Yeah, apparently things in this town that they lived in, near the Berkshire Mountains, it got real bad, and things just got intense, and, you know, people were doing crazy things to others that didn't believe. And even if you don't believe, that's not necessary. You don't have to do that type of stuff to somebody. You don't have to terrify somebody's whole family because it was adults, you know, picking on adults and children picking on other children. There was a lot of things going on after this whole UFO situation, but they found solace in each other. The abductees and, you know, the people that experienced it and that seen it, they found solace in each other. And I don't know, it's just like they created a bond. I don't know how much tourism going in the town now, but after the episode came out, I'm pretty sure tourism is going to rise. I'm pretty sure people will say, well, a craft landed on my farm and I have proof and stuff like that. So I don't know. I don't know if there was any other sightings in that town or around that area ever since. I can look into it and do an update later on, but I don't know. It's also interesting to me. It's so interesting to me because I believe it. There's nothing for me not to believe, you know, just because it didn't happen to me doesn't mean that it wasn't real. You know what I'm saying? So after I finished blending a 1,000,001 shades together to try and get the right color, because I'm not even sure how I feel about this, I am going to change and do my final reveal. I hope you guys like it. So what do y'all think? Out of this world, right? When I did my eyes, I just needed something that really, really popped because it's so much going on with the hair. This whole look is just like insane, but I love it. I feel like every time I put on a different wig, I become a different person, and I really start feeling the fantasy and whatnot. This is like very Nicki Minaj / Cardi B-ish. Wow. No, but seriously, guys, thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and share. Don't forget to ding that little bell while you're at it if you haven't already done it. You guys can always look me up on Instagram at Mixed Butterfly. Hit me up on Snapchat at an apple from Eve. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Bye.